Hey everyone, and welcome to Upcycled Adulting, my YouTube channel, where I help you overcome obstacles, create healthy habits, and grow to accomplish your goals. And today we're going to talk about overcoming one of the biggest obstacles related to the holidays, and that is sticking to a budget, saving money on particularly gift giving. So today I'm going to share a lot of tips for how you can save on Christmas gifts. And in addition to that, I'm going to share some thoughts with you about why this is important and why you should consider doing this, even if you're not struggling with being on a shoestring budget. So, without further ado, let's get into it. And do not forget to subscribe because I am always sharing ways for you to be able to build the life you've been dreaming about. So, as we come into the holiday season, really any gift giving season, this is problematic, but I think Christmas is the big one. Okay. And here's part of the reason why. When you're talking about birthdays and things like that, they happen at different times of year. And when we have children in particular, we really struggle with this idea that the kids will go back to school after winter break and they'll all be talking about what they got for Christmas, right? And we do not want our kids to feel like that kid and that kid who's like, well, why did Santa only bring me one little thing and brought all these people tons of gifts and brought them game systems and brought them, like, have I been bad in some way? Have I been naughty? Did I get on the naughty list somehow? And so I kind of feel like I got scammed or like I'm different or like I'm embarrassed or something like that. And so when it comes to things like birthdays, because they don't all happen at the same time, we don't feel as concerned about the kids comparing what they got. I am seeing this all over social media. Everyone is talking about this right now. And this is incredibly challenging. It's also challenging even if you have homeschooled kids or kids who are younger, that you want them to have these magical Christmas memories. You want to be able to give them the things that they put on their wish list, but that's not always possible. And even if it is, that doesn't mean you should. And it doesn't mean that it's the healthiest thing for your child to do so. So, today we're going to talk a little bit about ways you can save on Christmas and why you might actually want to cut back, whether you can afford to do it or not. So, let's just unwind this school thing to start with and talk about what that looks like and why we need to address this. Creating this thing where kids go to school and they talk about this creates a spirit of comparison. And we all know that comparison is the thief of all joy. So, teaching our children when they are very young that we don't do that. Okay. We don't go to school and give the rundown of everything we got for Christmas and compare it with all of our friends and do all of those things because we're not trying to have our joy stolen and we're not trying to steal the joy of our friends, right? Everyone has different holiday traditions. Everyone does different things for the holidays, right? And that parents, okay, and this was the thing that always was really helpful in our house. Parents create the guidelines that Santa abides to. Okay. So some parents have different guidelines. And this was a big thing in our home when our children wanted things. I remember one year, one of our kids wanted something. It was a gaming system, and we did not want them to have a gaming system because of their age, right? We just did not allow it with our kids when they were young, and they wanted that gaming system, right? We've had kids who are a little older ask for games that we didn't feel were appropriate for them. And we've always told them the thing is, Santa's not allowed to break the house rules. Okay. Now, we all have different feelings about how much Santa should be bringing. Maybe you feel like, I don't want to have that many things in my house. I want my children to earn money to buy the things that they want. I want them to learn how to save. I want them to learn the value. I want them to learn how to wait for the things that they want. I don't want instant gratification. I do not want Christmas to be a free for all where they get every single thing on their list and then forever they expect everything on their list. Okay. I don't want that. And because of that, there is a house rule that our children are only allowed to have one thing from Santa. Okay. Santa, of course, respects that rule. Santa never, ever would violate the boundaries of parents regarding their children. Just telling you that. Santa would never do that. That would be very naughty of Santa, right? So Santa doesn't do that. But more so, we don't compare what we get with what other people get because every household has different rules. Every household has different ideas about this. And in our home, and this is actually true for my home, in our home, we feel that it is more important to have time as a family. We feel that it is more important to enjoy Christmas and the traditions we've created than it is to give our kids a ton of stuff. Okay. Now, while a lot of people would say, well, you guys do get your kids quite a bit of stuff for Christmas, in our families, we are actually not necessarily the biggest shoppers. Okay. We have a limit, we have a budget limit, we have a gift limit, we have several safety nets on this. By the way, feel free to get your free resource below that helps you create a Christmas budget and track gifts as they're coming in. But we have two very different qualifiers, right? For how many gifts our kids get and how much money we spend. And that is it. Okay. That is it. And our budget has never, I think one year our Christmas budget allowed for gaming systems. Otherwise, our children don't get gaming systems from us for Christmas. If they want them, they can do extra chores, they can do projects around the house, they can have a side job and they can earn the money and save it. They can save their birthday money, their Christmas money. They can ask for that for Christmas and save the money that they get from other relatives, and they can buy their own gaming system. But we don't do that. We have those parameters, okay, around what we buy for Christmas. A big part of the reason why stressing about money at Christmas time is a absolute hard no in my household is because, and I share this story frequently, my father passed away 25 years ago. In my childhood, I cannot recall a single Christmas that I was able to really enjoy with him. He was always stressed about money. He was always stressed about Christmas shopping. He was always stressed about that gift haul, always, every single year. And this, even if nothing else will do it, this actually creates parentification in your children that is really not safe. Your kids know when you are stressed about money. Even when they're little, they know that you are stressed about money. And they may still ask for the stuff, even though they know that you're stressed about money. But I have to tell you that putting your children in a situation where they know that you are being financially potentially reckless or that you are actually not enjoying the holidays at all, that you are irritable and that you are distant because you're worried about how many things you can buy them is really problematic. So we really need to move away from that. Now, in my husband's family, there are some traditions about money and Christmas spending that have come up also through the years. My sister in law, I thought this was the best idea ever. My sister in law is very strong in her faith. Okay. They have two daughters. They're now split, but they have two daughters. And every single year, the girls got three gifts for Christmas, one from Santa, two from the parents every year. And early on when this was going on, my mother-in-law was concerned about, is this a financial thing? Why would this happen? So she had feelings about what was happening here, right? With the number of gifts. Like, do they need help to give the kids a bigger Christmas? That kind of thing. And I remember my sister-in-law said, Jesus got three gifts. It's enough for my kids too. Period. Uh-huh. That's what she actually said. Telling other members of your family that it is important to you that your boundaries about gift giving are respected when it comes to your children is completely reasonable. Setting your own boundaries, even if they're different from what you did when you were a kid, is completely reasonable. I was recently on Facebook and I was reading this post about a mother-in-law who was buying the kids stuff all the time, and the mom felt very strongly that she didn't want that. She didn't want to encourage consumerism in her kids. She didn't want the instant gratification thing. She didn't want all the stuff in the house. She really was struggling with this. This has been communicated multiple times to the mother-in-law by her husband, by herself, and the mother-in-law wasn't stopping. And people left, I'm going to tell you, at least 100 comments about how this was likely the mother-in-law's love language. Okay. Just because someone else's love language is gifts does not mean that it is okay for them to disrespect your boundaries about your children. Now, for those of you listening to that who are like, oh my gosh, but it would be so nice. And for those of you who are thinking that, I want to just put this in a frame of reference, which is if your mother in law's love language was physical touch and she was forcing your children to snuggle with her, sit on her lap, hold them, hug them, and your children weren't comfortable with that, would you force them to do it? No, you would not force them to do it. Just because it's somebody's love language doesn't mean that they have the right to completely override your preferences for your kids, yourself, or your family. Does not mean your boundaries go out the window because that's her love language. That is not how that works. And if you are interested in this topic, you let me know in the comments because I'll do a whole video about just this and how to create that boundary and how to communicate that when somebody means really well, their intention is great, they love your child, but they are crossing the line, because that is an important thing to discuss, and it does happen. At any rate, you can create the traditions you want about gifting related to your children. You also, whether you're in a position where you do a lot for Christmas or you don't, having a conversation with your kids about how bad a habit it is to get into these comparison conversations is also important. Okay. It's very important. And creating clarity about the fact that we're not judging the morality or is this right or is this wrong, but that different people have different values about the holidays and they want different things from the holidays and different people celebrate differently, right? That matters. All right. I have a lot of holiday traditions in my home that other people do not have. Okay. For example, I do this big cookie weekend event where we bake cookies for a whole weekend. The kids invite their friends, my nieces and nephews come. Sometimes I've had 30 kids in my house at one time baking and decorating cookies. All right. A lot of times their friends and even family members are like, "This is my favorite event of the whole Christmas season. It's my very favorite thing," right? I've even had a couple kids say that it's their favorite over Christmas morning opening gifts. Now, does that mean everyone needs to do it? No. Does that mean everyone should do it? No, absolutely not. That works in my life with my family, right? That works in my situation. You're not robbing your kids of something because you hate baking, right? Make friends with someone who loves baking and wants to do this, okay? Like, this is a real thing. Like, this is part of the thing that I contribute into my village, right? Other people do all sorts of things that are very helpful for me and that create wonderful memories for me. And this is a thing that I do that creates wonderful memories for their families. Just saying, okay? It works for me. Now, we don't need to compare that and say, well, this is better and this is not. What we need to think about is what matters most to us. Okay. And that different things matter to different families, and different families have different perspectives and priorities and budgets and all kinds of things. This isn't even just a money thing. This can be for a lot of different reasons. All right. In our situation, I've talked about this before that I went from homeless to a multimillionaire in less than 20 years. We could afford to buy our children those things. We chose not to. Okay. You don't have to engage in it simply because you have the resources. You don't have to get in debt over it. Just because you have the credit limit doesn't mean that you should spend it. Okay. And if you don't have it, don't do it. This is one of those things that I think we get into this space where we think if anytime that someone has the resources, they buy these things, and my kids don't get it because I don't have the resources. This is not true. We can also make choices that say, I will not spend my holidays stressed out about this. I will not put myself in a financially bad situation. I will not teach my children to make these kinds of financial choices. I want something different. Okay. And there is nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with that. When we feel more empowered to make the choice, it's a little bit easier to do so, right? So if we can come to a space where we say, I don't have a lot to spend on Christmas, and the most important thing to me is that I'm setting the example for my kids to live within their means and to be financially responsible, it feels a lot better than I don't have a lot to spend on Christmas. So that means I'm depriving my children. Those are not the same thing. So switch up your money mindset when it comes to Christmas shopping. Now, in addition to that, and by the way, I've now gotten into why you might want to choose to cut back on Christmas. I'm going to suggest some ways to actually save money on Christmas that you maybe have or haven't thought about. And I'm going to take some taboo things too, and I'm going to pull them apart a little bit for you. So, one is recently I've been reading about this tradition that is something you want, something you need, something to wear, and something to read. I love that. I love the way that it creates structure. I love that it creates also a little bit of flexibility in the something I want category, but it actually kind of contains, right? The Christmas shopping list. And so that reduces some of the stress. For me as a parent with 5 children, had I known about this when my kids were little, because I just heard about it in the last couple of years and they're all grown-ups, but had I known about this when my kids were little, this would have absolutely been my thing. I like structure. I like having a routine. I like just kind of having a checklist, right? We get them all a book, we get them all. And that is really, really helpful for me. Um, I absolutely would stick to some kind of set, like my sister-in-law with the 3 gifts. I think that that really helps create an expectation that feels doable, right? And where you can have some flexibility about how much you spend there. You could have one year where you have a $50 budget to buy those things, and one year where you have a $200 budget. Just depends on what you've got going on, but you kind of have a foundation that you're going with, right? So I really, really like that one. I think it is very, very important to, I'm going to get into like a really weird detail here, but it's really important to contain stockings. I have actually found through the years that stocking stuffers have become more extravagant and a lot more expensive. Okay. So really containing that particular aspect of Christmas can be really helpful. You could say at this age, the stocking is done. We don't do it anymore. I know a lot of people who do only stockings for their teen or adult children. Or you can do easy consumable small things. So a lot of people do things like socks, things like maybe chocolates. An orange in the stocking is very, very common. That's actually a tradition. If y'all know where that's a tradition from, please let me know. I know it's somewhere in Europe. Maybe it's several places in Europe. I think I remember my friend who's from Scotland telling me about them. Christmas crackers are fun in the stocking for older kids. If this is not morally objectionable, a scratch off ticket in the stocking is fun. But keeping those items where you say we do 5 items that and we spend no more than $10 on the stocking, but really keeping a containment on that stocking. Um, Stockings can go a little berserk because a lot of times we're thinking about we're just like, I've got to put things in the stocking, and we're not thinking about how those things add up because it's multiple items going into the stocking. So if each item is $10 and you have 5 things, you just spent $50 on a stocking. And to be honest, 5 $10 things are usually more throwaways. Like a lot of things it's harder to get things for $10 that are higher quality. So just keeping that in mind. Things that go in our kids' stockings every single year, just so you know, every single year our kids get a small notebook or journal, okay, and a wall calendar. And we actually have specific things that we get as the wall calendars based on what their interests are. Our daughter, who lives in Arizona, for example, always gets a Michigan wall calendar, which is kind of funny and cute. We sometimes will get them like little pens. We've done mini Lego sets. We've done all kinds of little things. There's always mints in their stocking, and there's usually some sort of candy. Okay, like one of those candy canes that has M&Ms in it, or something like that, or a bag of M&Ms. Those are things that are typically in their stockings. Sometimes we'll put a cute pen in there for their journal, something like that. But we tend to keep it very reasonable. And so we want X number of things in their stocking, right? That's what we say. Blank number of things. This is how much we're going to spend. All right. So that way we get a variety of things. A couple of the things might cost a little more, a couple of the things are very inexpensive, and we work it out so that the stockings are more reasonable in price. Now, a few years back, my husband and I actually started doing a joint gift for ourselves. We've been married for 22 years. My husband, if you ever see me in photos wearing jewelry or carrying a handbag, my husband bought all of them. He picked them all out himself. He used to be giving me all these kind of extravagant gifts. And I just felt like, how many of these things can I have? So, what we decided to start doing is getting household gifts or things that we both wanted. One year we got a piece of weightlifting equipment for our gym. We've gotten cross country skis together. A lot of times, by the way, now that I'm telling you about this, I'm like, there's a lot of pretty active stuff that we've done. As far as like the things that we get are oftentimes related to health things or outdoorsy things. Sometimes we do a project around the house, something on that vein, right? I'm not saying that we cannot get gifts for each other. If you do get gifts for each other, one of the things I learned the hard way, as I'm telling you about that he has bought me jewelry, is to set a budget for that. Okay. Set a budget for that. Have an expectation of how much will be spent. One of the best things to do is to set a budget and say, we're going to hit that budget. Okay. This creates some equality. So there's not so much disparity. I've been hearing lately about that happening a lot. But if you say we're each going to spend $100 on each other for Christmas, you each actually spend the $100 on the other person. That way, there's not so much of a disparity. I highly recommend that you create a wish list. I recommend that to everyone. It's really, really helpful to have something like that. Please mark my words and hear me when I tell you that hinting at what you want as a gift, or even saying sometime at the beginning of December, I would love to have a blank, is not necessarily going to result in you getting it. Okay. There's a lot of disappointment in this area every year. I highly recommend that you make a list. I highly recommend that you star the couple things you're really wanting, maybe then mention those things, but expecting that in the busyness of life, and especially with the holidays, that we're going to remember that. Like the number of times I've come into the Thanksgiving timeframe and been like, there was something that my husband said he wanted and I can't remember what it was. Okay. And it'll drive me bonkers. So it's super helpful to have a list. By the way, if you're anything like that, like us, you'll find that other people will probably ask for it too. Usually, my mother-in-law, for example, will ask for a list as well. Um, that's my family always asks for a list for the kids, and my husband's family always asks for a list for the adults. So we have it on both sides. Just different things like that. Traditionally, it's really interesting how different the traditions can be, I guess, and how gift buying goes down. I want to tell everybody that it is absolutely 100%. I am going to tell you right now, it is okay, A-okay, 2 thumbs up. Ready? 2, buying things used and regifting. Boom. Listen, buying things used and regifting are both absolutely 100% fine. If you're sitting there right now and you just went, I want to just rephrase this and reframe this for you so that you think about this in a different way. Okay. We live in a time where we actually need to have concern about the environment. Okay. Now, listen, it does not matter to me if you think that climate change is not a problem. All right. Because if you've never watched a documentary or a television program where you've seen the landfills that are going on and the trash heap in the ocean, okay, then I don't know where you have been. Okay. So rather than creating more waste, rather than creating more trash, okay, let's just embrace the idea of regifting and buying things used. All right. There is nothing at all wrong with that. In addition, I'm going to challenge everyone to consider, okay, giving people cash, not kidding, as in dollars, giving people cash, okay, with a pretty ribbon with a tag that says to be used for dinner out, to be used for the movies because of plastic waste. Okay. Like we are buying gift cards and throwing them in the trash. Okay. And they get lost and they don't get used. And right. So please consider buying cash, fold it up in origami, learn how to do that as a fun hobby and give it to somebody as a gift instead of giving away all of these plastic gift cards. In addition, my family switched to this many years ago because they were like, why am I spending all this money on the gift cards? A lot of the gift cards actually have a fee to actually buy them, especially like the Visa, MasterCard, those ones. And if you're giving someone a Visa gift card, you could just give them cash. I mean, let's be real here, because it's so generic. So let's really consider that. But most of the time, I actually think that it is way, way more budget friendly to get an actual gift because you can get it on sale. You can get it um, used or you can get it from something that you have. One person's trash is often another person's treasure. Just because you don't want blank doesn't mean nobody else wants blank. Okay. For anybody watching this who knows me in real life, all right, I will never buy myself an air fryer. But if you happen to have one and you don't use it and you would like to re gift it to me, okay, I will gratefully and gladly take that air fryer. I will be very excited about it and I will not care that it's not in the box. And as a side note, I'll actually be glad that you gave it to me regifted or that you gave it to me after you had tried it and you decided you didn't like it, okay? Or that you bought it used rather than thinking that it's going to waste. Rather than creating more, right? More waste, more stuff. It is the job of marketing teams to tell you that you need to buy things new, especially at Christmas time. And I am here to tell you that is not true. So please regift and buy things used. All right. One of my daughters is actually working on her master's degree in sustainability. And for her daughter's first birthday, I had the party at my house because she's in Arizona. And I actually put it on all the invitations that my daughter really wanted used gifts for my granddaughter. And people were really funny about it in a lot of cases, but I cannot tell you how happy she was about it. She actually was just here for Thanksgiving, and she was just telling me that she thought it was the coolest thing ever that everyone bought um, things from thrift stores and stuff like that. She just thought it was so great. And this can take a little more time to do because you really have to find the gifts. But I have to tell you, it's well worth it. So do it, do it, do it, do it. Okay. So please buy used and regift. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. And the next thing I'm going to say is cut the rest of your list. I cannot get over the number of times I see on social media people talking about who they buy gifts for at Christmas, and sometimes my jaw just drops. Okay. I will share who gets bought for in my family. And then I want you to rethink about what works for your family. So in my family, my husband and I buy for his parents and my parents. Okay. My mom and my stepdad. And then we buy for our nieces and nephews who are still children. Okay. We buy for one niece who's an adult on my husband's side of the family because we haven't transitioned there. And we actually only have two nieces on my husband's side of the family, right? We have a nephew who's an adult, right? And he has kids of his own. We do not buy for great nieces and nephews, and we don't actually buy for the adults who have children. We did get gifts for I'm 17 years older than my youngest brother. We got gifts for him for Christmas until he had a kid of his own, and now we buy for his kid instead. All right. My children are all adults, as you know. So you may be wondering, well, what happens when they're adults? In my husband's family, nothing has been established yet because we have the oldest kids in the family, and this hasn't really been worked through yet. His family has a lot more um, I would say his family has more stringent traditions. And so this would insert something new in there that they may or may not be ready for. But in my family, what we started doing is we let everybody who's an adult, including like our adult kids, choose if they want to be part of Secret Santa. That's it. We let them choose. If they want to be a part of Secret Santa, then they get a gift for somebody and somebody gets a gift for them. That's what we do. Okay. That is it. That's super, super simple. Now, my mom always gets gifts for her kids and grandkids. All right. We really cut back a lot on the sibling gifts and all of that because it gets to be really difficult, expensive, time consuming on Christmas, and really, really complicated. So I really want to encourage you to streamline. You can do that by doing a Secret Santa. You can do that by saying, we're not exchanging physical gifts this year. We're not going to do gift giving. Like I'm not getting gifts for y'all, just so you know. So it would be a lot less awkward for me if you don't get gifts for me either. That is sometimes helpful. Never, ever do you need to feel, you should not feel obligated or responsible to buy gifts for people if you do not feel comfortable doing it, or to receive gifts from people if you do not feel comfortable doing it. Again, even if their love language is gifts, that is not necessary. That is not fair to put people in that situation. It is completely acceptable to have boundaries about who you get gifts from and who you give gifts to. Make no mistake about it. The next option is, and this is one of my favorite options, so I want to share this with you, okay? Very much consider giving people a gift that is free but meaningful. And what do I mean by that? Again, let's rewind to the place where I said I have 5 children. Okay, I have 5 children. I have 2 children with special needs. One of my children has autism. Um, for my husband and I to be able to go on a date night or just have time alone was much more complicated, right? Because of this. Now, my mother-in-law had a tradition. My mother and father-in-law have a tradition that they watch the kids so that they watch the grandkids so the kids can go on a trip, right? So we would do a couple trips a year that way. I know, super nice. That's a family tradition. I highly recommend everyone start. But that was a tradition. But for us to go on a date night or for us to, for example, go Christmas shopping together, we would need to try to find a babysitter. And finding a babysitter when you have 5 children is hard. Finding a babysitter, period, is hard. Finding somebody you really trust with your kids is hard. Finding a babysitter when you're a special needs parent is a different kind of hard. Like, this is a lot of stuff. Okay. So, if someone had ever given me a babysitting coupon for Christmas, I would have been beside myself. And I don't know if anybody's checked what the rates are on a babysitter recently, okay? But a babysitting coupon for a date night is worth, I'm going to say, a good $50 for me. Okay? That is a very, very serious, nice gift. All right? One babysitting coupon would be worth that to me. Okay. Plus, giving me the peace of mind that my child is with a family member that loves them, that I trust, that I know will look after them. Priceless. Okay. I recently saw this suggestion. I thought it was the most amazing thing in the world is a monthly soup delivery. Okay. Um, So a friend of mine did a monthly soup delivery for their elderly parents because they found that they got so busy in their everyday life that they were not seeing their elderly parents as much as they wanted to or as much as the elderly parents wanted them to. So they made a standing soup day. Like the second Wednesday of every month, they make a big pot of soup and they go to their parents' house and they have lunch with them. Just them by themselves so they get one-on-one time with their parents. Priceless. I have to tell you, priceless. Anybody wants another gift idea related to me, offer to come weed my garden. If you are following me on any of my other social media channels, you know I hate weeding, okay? I will tell you the value to me of having someone who's great at gardening that knows how to weed a garden, that I don't have to go outside and say, "No, that's not a weed. Please don't dig that up," right? That you just know, like, this is a weed, that's not a weed, and you're not gonna kill everything in my yard, valuable to me. So, really thinking about what are those free things? What are your talents? Okay. And then, in addition to that, I really want you to think about crafts. Think about the things that can be made for people, especially if you have kids. Especially if you have kids. Okay. My favorite thing to receive as a gift is something that was made for me, especially something made by like one of my grandkids. So every year, last year I started this with my two granddaughters. They come over one day between Thanksgiving and Christmas. I babysit them. My girls get a night out, right? They get to go out and do whatever they want to do, right? I babysit the girls and we do crafts for Christmas gifts. And then we wrap them up and they have gifts for their parents and for their grandparents. We do gifts for both parents because they're split, both couples are split, both parents. For me, I get one, for their other grandparents and for my husband's ex-wife, for our kid's biological mom, for them, right? My husband asked me last year why in the world I would do that. I know. One is we're actually on good terms. So for all of y'all who are like, "Oh my god," we're actually over the years we have become much closer. We're on good terms. We're at the very least civil with each other, as we need to be. And two is because this matters to the girls, right? This is really cool for my granddaughters to understand how excited they are every single year that they get to make these special things and give them out, right? And they get to get gifts for everybody and they get to be part of that process and they get to experience the joy of giving is really a beautiful thing. Okay, that's really a beautiful thing. And I cannot emphasize enough how special that is and how much you may want to consider that option if you have children. And by the way, Christmas crafting can be super, super cheap. Please don't overcomplicate this. Please don't make it super expensive. Make some salt dough ornaments. That's what I did with them last year. We made salt dough handprints. I mean, I'm telling you, the whole thing was less than $5. Like, it was really inexpensive. And consider experiences also, even with your kids, like a kid date, like just mom and kid time. Okay. Or just dad and kid time. Things like that are really, really, really impactful and really priceless. And honestly, those types of gifts probably are more reinforcing of your family values and what you want for your children, what you want their memories to be, than anything you're going to find in a box on a store shelf, okay? Or on Amazon. Just telling you. So, to summarize, we're going to encourage our children to stop comparing the Christmas haul, okay, with their friends. And we're going to do that too. If we need to hide people on social media, if we need to step away from some of this, we're going to do that. We're going to recognize that there's a lot of marketing at play here. There's a lot of psychological manipulation, and we're going to step away from it. But we're going to encourage our kids to not get into the comparison game. We're going to create boundaries about what we feel is appropriate and reflecting of our family values about what we do for our children and the people in our lives for Christmas. and we're going to be clear about them. Okay. When we're in a situation where we financially have a limitation we're not comfortable with, we're going to work to reframe that limitation so that we can remind ourselves of the ways that we can live inside the limitation and make it a valuable lesson or make it part of our values as a family, right? Where can we look at that and see a way that we can reframe that and take something from that that dulls the sting? Because believe me, I understand that it stings, but that dulls that sting, right? We're going to not get into a position where we stress and we do financially reckless things and we create a air of tension and fear and anguish at the holidays, right? We're going to remind ourselves that that's not where we're going with that. We're going to re-gift. We're going to buy things used. We're going to give things that are of high value, but absolutely free. And we're going to do more crafting. Okay, we're going to do more crafting. And listen, y'all, I have to tell you this. If you embrace even one of these concepts, okay, one, you will save money, but two, and I think that this is far, far more important, okay, you will receive intangible values that you were never expecting, okay? The way that it makes you feel to simplify and streamline the shopping and the spending at Christmas is indescribable. And the only way that I can help you understand and see this is to encourage you to do this. Pick one of these things and actually do it this year. And do it this year because you want to recenter yourself about what Christmas means to you, what the holidays mean to you, whether they have a spiritual meaning or a familial meaning, or they're about your relationships, or they're about loving each other or making memories. None of those things are about the things that you're buying. None of them are. So when we alleviate the pressure about what we're buying, I'm telling you, there's joy on the other side of this. I promise you there's joy. Okay. So let me know in the comments what you're going to do this season to embrace this idea of spending less on Christmas and getting more out of it, because that's what it's really about. Do not forget to subscribe to this channel. I am always here helping you overcome obstacles, create healthy habits, and grow to accomplish your goals, because you are amazing and you deserve to live the life you've been dreaming of. I hope you have a magical holiday season. Bye, everyone.